Okay, hello and welcome to the Grimm Times podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Jarman. Today we're going to talk about ghosts. I'm joined here by a good friend of mine named John. He's also studied the paranormal for quite a few years, knows a lot of good literature on the subject, actually, too. He's introduced me to a few books about ghosts and other things. So I'm just going to bring him in here. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Yeah, no problem. Glad to be here.
So let's start out kind of talking about how you got interested in the paranormal to begin with.
Oh, I'd say back in high school, actually, probably my junior year, I started getting into reading some of the true horror stories and stuff around, looking for local stuff, and just after that, just took off after that.
Oh, yeah. So you didn't really have a life event or anything like that that brought you into it all of a sudden?
No, that happened actually later.
Oh, that's right. I remember you've told me some things that had happened to you in the past.
Yeah, and actually, I think you had that story on your podcast last Halloween.
Yeah, that's right. I did. During the special, you were one of the submitted stories, one of the few. So thanks again for that one. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty much the same deal for me. I never really had anything happen to me. I'd never even seen a ghost until about a year ago, I think, after like almost a decade of studying the subject. So it's kind of just one of those deals. You always had that fascination about it, and you kind of wonder what more there is to life than just your 9 to 5 job and stuff like that. So we'll talk about what ghosts are. I mean, most people probably know what a ghost is in general, but let's just kind of discuss what they are and what we think that they are. Do you think they have a physical essence to them? Like, would they be made up of mass, or is it just pure energy? And that goes into the whole discussion, like, is energy the same thing as mass? I mean, does it actually...
Yeah, that encompasses quite a bit. I would say, I mean, I feel like it's more energy than anything because you have, different types. Like you got residual, intelligent. I can't remember the other form of it, but...
Yeah, that's actually a good thing.
I don't know, I mean...
That's a good thing to get into, too, is go ahead and go over the types of hauntings and I don't know, just kind of what a ghost is in general when you think of a ghost.
Well, when I think of a ghost, I think of energy left behind, like an imprint left from this life to the next, maybe to another plane, another dimension of life. And looking at that, when you got residual, it's kind of like playing a record over and over. Like you might hear footsteps in the night going up and down the stairs, and that's all you have.
Right.
The intelligent hauntings, which is one that I experienced, I believe I experienced it very well. They're more interactive, almost like it's a different plane of existence.
Right, so that would be one that you could actually talk to and get a response from it, whereas the residual haunting is just, like you said, the footsteps, like the lady in white going up and down the stairs at the same time every night, 10 o'clock at night every time, and there seems to be no interaction with the living people. Why don't you go ahead and tell us your story of what you experienced?
Okay, it was a few years ago. It was, oh gosh, I guess this was back in 2003, 2004. It was the year before my son was born. We lived in a triplex here in the town we live at now, and it was brand new, shouldn't have been a problem. We were there for about a month, and within a couple of days, we actually started experiencing different stuff. There'd be like cold chills, or you just had this feeling that somebody was there next to you.
Huh.
There was one night, she was working, my wife was working nights at the time, I worked during the days. I was sitting there on the couch, and it faced away from the kitchen behind the couch. I was watching TV, and I mean, you just have this feeling that something's not right. And what actually happened was the cabinets had opened, and then they all slammed at once.
Oh my gosh.
And of course, I jumped up, turned around, and, nothing. You just see kind of the reverberation on some of the cabinets, but that was it. And there was a few nights, about a week later, I woke up out of a dead sleep. It was about 3:30 in the morning, and I couldn't move. I mean, I couldn't sit up. I felt like my chest was heavy. And I swear out of the corner of my eye, there was something in the corner of the room. I couldn't move. I couldn't get up. I couldn't warn. I couldn't shake my wife. I couldn't do nothing.
So you experienced
and it wasn't long after that we moved.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I bet. So you experienced full sleep paralysis. I've heard that's one of the most terrifying things you could ever go through.
Yeah, because you're helpless. I mean, it feels like I know I need to get up and do something, but you can't get yourself to get up and do it.
And that's another interesting thing. A lot of people, well, I mean, certain scientists like Robert Monroe of the Monroe Sleep Institute, they actually study the out of body experiences and things like that. And they briefly touched on in a old Coast to Coast AM interview that I listened to. They touched on sleep paralysis, and one opinion from them was that when you experience this, the thing that you think that you see out of the corner of your eye or something standing at the foot of your bed, that kind of thing, it would be just a manifestation of your mind, like the worst thing you could imagine or what you're afraid of. When you were in that moment, did you feel? And to the contrary, some people swear that it is real, and there actually is something there, and I'm sure in some cases there is. In your opinion or your experience, did it feel like it was really something there?
On me, not really. Couldn't really feel like there was something on me. It was just that feeling that I couldn't do anything.
Yeah,
I mean, I have the corner of my eye. I mean, I swear I could see something in the corner. Whether or not that had to do with it or not, I don't know. But we had plenty of experiences in our bedroom, such as the TV turning on and off in the night, come on static.
wow,
But as in for something feeling like it was on me, I really couldn't tell. It was more like the feeling of I just couldn't get up to move. I
yeah,
just, like I knew I needed to get up and see if there was somebody in the room, but I couldn't do it.
right.
Like as in like a physical feeling, no. It was like almost like an emotional, spiritual type thing. I couldn't get myself. My brain was working, but my body wouldn't.
And you still had the tightness of the chest, right? Like something was pressing down on you.
Yeah, it did feel like something was pressing, but like I said, I really couldn't escape that feeling.
Right, yeah. And I've heard of that before too. They call it the old hag syndrome. I think it originated from people who would experience this, and sometimes they would actually look up and they would see something sitting on their chest, and that would be the old hag. And it was like this old witch, who she would place a curse on you or something like that. But nowadays, I mean, there's so many different forms of it. It could be the old hag, it could be the sleep paralysis, it could be a haunting. Probably in your case, it was the haunting. But yeah, and out of curiosity with the TV, was it a newer like flat screen or was it a tube TV or how would you turn it on?
It was an old tube TV. We did have a remote, turn on and off, but of course at the time, the channels that we had, of course, if they weren't on, it was static.
And
So
that's
you had to have it on a certain channel for it to work, and if you were off on channel 97 or something, obviously it'd be static. And
yeah,
that's what we might go to bed watching the news on channel 310, one of the locals,
yeah.
wake up, be static on channel 97. Well, if the remote's way out of reach on the end table, then you wouldn't think you'd reach over and turn it on.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty creepy. How many times has that happened? How many times has the TV turned on?
It happened quite a few. It
Do you
probably
rem-
happened 3 or 4 times.
did it seem like there was any number that showed up more than others? Like the non-channel
Not really.
channels?
I mean, it was just in the 90s.
Oh yeah.
It really wasn't anything specific, anywhere between 90 to 96.
Hmm. Interesting. All right. Well, that's one definitely huge experience. I wonder if the house is still haunted. After you moved, it left, right? Or you didn't have any more problems, right?
We didn't have any more problems, no. And of course, the apartment that we lived in was, like I said, they just built them brand new. But that doesn't mean we were close to a major highway that has been known for accidents, and
Yeah.
I think they call it the Bloody 13
Oh yeah.
because it just so many deaths. So whether or not that something carried over from there to this property, not really sure. But like I said, brand new, it shouldn't have been a problem, but it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing. Even brand new houses can be haunted. I mean, I think it really goes, like you said, either with the highway or with the ground. Who knows what could have happened on it beforehand? Indian burial ground, the old stories. But in some cases, it seems like the haunting can actually follow the person. But if it didn't follow you to the new house, then that's definitely a good thing. I mean, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's mostly demonic hauntings that would follow the individual rather than the house. Like usually a human spirit ghost will stay at the house and it won't follow the individual person.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's what you get. And then your demonic ones, whether it's a possessed item or anything, it could follow you potentially. They've always talked about. There's been certain cases where that hasn't happened, such as the controversial Amityville horror. Those people they fled after 23 days, but never had any problems after that.
Yeah,
And but yet
do
the
you think
people
that
that
one is
moved in
legitimate?
afterwards, didn't have any problems with the house to report. So,
Yeah,
hoax, or was it just a certain situation set into motion with that family?
yeah, yeah. A lot of people don't believe it. They think that the son came out or something. I think the son's in prison, right? And he said that his father was just crazy and it wasn't actually haunted. But that doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Yeah, I've seen two of them. Two of their sons came out. One of them said that it was a big hoax, and one actually he had a show on Netflix, and I think it was called My Amityville Haunting or something. And they interviewed him. He was one of the youngest boys, and he said, "I wish somebody talked to me about it," because he talked about the beds levitating, slamming down, and
Oh my
just
gosh.
how horrible that house was, ready to get out of there. But he also talked, on the other hand, how I guess it was George Lutz was his stepfather, how mean, abusive, and everything else he was. So, I mean, whether or not that may have fueled something to be there just around that family at that particular time, it's hard to say.
Yeah, I mean that's very possible. That actually brings up another point. Some people talk about how you shouldn't watch horror movies or anything dark, have a lot of dark things, because that can actually encourage the sort of activity or bring in the darkness, that kind of thing. I don't necessarily buy into that a whole lot, but do you have an opinion on that?
No, I don't think it does because I've that's a lot of primary I watch is horror movies, horror shows. I mean, I've even watched some on sci-fi, paranormal witnesses, and
Yeah,
they're supposed to be down dirty and true, but I don't think there's any merit to that. I think it has to a certain set of circumstances, such as maybe an item you might pick up at a thrift store could possibly be haunted,
yeah. Let's
bring it
talk
into the
about
house.
that. Let's talk about that. Haunted items. What can cause an item to be haunted, and can it really be any item?
Well, I think it has to be something close to the person, something that maybe they valued above all that's not with them anymore. I mean, because the Warrens, of course, up in Connecticut, they still have that museum where you can go see all the stuff they've collected that's supposed to be haunted, such as, of course, the movie coming out, Annabelle, about the doll
Oh yeah,
that was haunted, with that one coming out. And then there's been several other items they've collected over time that they claim's haunted. I think it has to be something near and dear that you're really connected to. Maybe a wedding ring, or could be a necklace, could be a piece of furniture for all that goes. Maybe somebody that's into music, piano or something, could be caught part of that residual
yeah.
essence that's still stuck with it.
Yeah. Have you heard of Robert the Haunted Doll? That one from down in Florida?
I guess I haven't read about that one.
It's you'd probably recognize it if you saw it. It's a little doll that's dressed up like a sailor, and they called him Robert after his original owner back in like the early '70s, maybe. I could have my dates mixed up, but yeah, that one was really creepy. The kid used to be friends with it, and they would play together in the attic, and like the parents would hear two voices coming from the attic when they knew their son was up there alone with the doll, and they would hear footsteps at night, and the doll would be in different places of the house when they would come home, and then eventually, it started getting violent, and it would tell the kid to do bad things, like, I can't remember. I want to say like murder his parents or something really extreme like that, but I can't totally remember. Neighbors would walk by and they would see this doll staring out the window. I mean, I can't even imagine anything more creepy than that. And Robert is actually the one who inspired the Chucky movies.
Okay, yeah, I can see that because I did read somewhere they inspired off the doll, and then of course character named after three murders: Charles Lee Ray, and
Yeah,
you got Charles Manson, Lee Harvey Oswald, and I can't remember.
the Ray.
Yeah, and I can't I remember what that one was. It's some strangler or murder or something. But yeah,
Huh.
I can see a lot of these horror movies. They do get their stuff from true life events.
Yeah, yeah. And
They
actually,
carry
that
out.
that Robert doll, you can actually go down to Florida right now and see him. He's in a museum glass display case. And yeah, I mean, I think the security even says that sometimes he manages to escape at night and walk around the museum a little bit. But I don't know. Some people have actually quit working there because of that. But yeah, it's a
Yeah.
borderline murdering doll, so it's pretty crazy. And that would almost be to me like a spirit of a human, or I mean, maybe a demon, maybe not. I don't know if a demon would waste its time messing with a doll, but a human spirit going into this item and actually controlling it like it was a human, I guess. But I don't know. I don't really understand that either because you would think, like, say the doll has cotton feet. You know, how is it going to walk when it's got cotton feet? I mean, we unless it levitates itself, or I don't know. Maybe I'm reaching here.
That could be. I mean, I'm not too familiar of how it's supposed to work because I guess it just depends on how you're defined as a ghost. You know, are you define it as a physical transparent form on a different plane that can control itself like that and have weight to, because we got bone structure and stuff that helps us walk and stay upright.
Yeah,
Like you said, if you're looking at a doll that just has cotton and stuff, how's this piece of cotton supposed to hold up the rest of this weight?
yeah, that's true.
So I guess that just comes down to probably how the ghosts fall in, whether or not they have mass or not.
Yeah,
Of course, that's another thing. Different plane, different idea of where we're at in the universe.
yeah, that's a good. Well, let's talk about the different sort of dimensions that you kind of mentioned there. What causes a ghost to remain here after the human dies? I mean, let's even talk about what types of ghosts there are because there are regular human spirit ghosts. There's poltergeists, which I don't believe are human. I think that's something else. And then
Yeah.
demons. So, what are your thoughts on those?
Well, with demons and stuff, we have that toward us part more of a spiritual, whether any type of religion has their own demons and stuff, and that's where I think you have more of the malevolent forces
Yeah,
at work against you. They're out to seek pain, suffering, hurt and stuff, which could also be where maybe poltergeists, not full demons, maybe not human spirits, maybe they're somewhere in between there.
yeah,
Because they're more or less, because from the German word noisy ghost.
yeah,
That's where they get poltergeist from is a noisy ghost, and that's what poltergeists are. They're just a pain in the butt. But
yeah.
of course, I've also read that a lot of them come around like you might have, a daughter or something coming into puberty that enhances it. So it may have been lying dormant in the home,
Huh.
and when they hit those hormone levels and stuff, it triggers different acts. And they say that well, after they outgrow this part of it, then you don't have a problem.
Weird. Yeah, I remember hearing that a long time ago. That's kind of interesting how they react with each other.
Now whether or not that really has anything to do with it could just be a matter of coincidence because also you have all those hormones and emotions running. That could just be a gateway for something to come in too,
Yeah,
if it feeds off emotions.
yeah, that's true. Um, and then what would cause a human to become a ghost and not move on to the next plane? Or is being a ghost all there is?
That's a good question because I guess it's just going to depend on how you want to believe. Because, if we're energy and we're leftover energy, do we dissipate? Or is there something maybe in our body chemistry that keeps us here? Uh, that's a pretty good one. I need to look more into that because I guess I never thought about it that way. That's also where you get like dowsing. People that can douse graves and stuff. Some people can, some people can't. I happen to be one that can do it. I've went to several cemeteries and found unmarked graves.
Oh, wow.
But my father, he can't do it. I'll sit there, I'll walk over a place, have the dowsing rods come across real strong. You can tell that's a grave because it's sunk in.
Huh.
He can walk by, do the same exact thing, and not do nothing. But if he does it and I touch him, it'll work.
Wow.
So that could be another subject altogether, though,
That's
because
interesting.
that's
Yeah.
a whole different thing, whether that's body magnetics or what.
Yeah, I'll have to remember that if we ever go ghost hunting. Have to
Yeah.
put you to use that way. Um,
Yeah.
so for me, I think, like you said, it really does come down to faith. What happens after you die? Nobody really knows for sure until it happens, I guess. Um, but I am a pretty firm believer that you only remain here as a ghost if you had some sort of horrible emotional deal or unfinished business or something like that. Maybe sometimes suicides. It always seems to be the really violent deaths that hold people here. I mean, if everybody became a ghost, then I would think we'd probably be overpopulated on the earth. Everybody would be haunted in their homes, and you know, and
We think it'd be more prevalent than what it is, from belief and non-belief.
yeah,
It seems like it'd be something that'd be more prevalent. So
yeah. So
maybe it is something, emotional that you go through that makes you stay
yeah,
compared to, being 70, 80, 90, 100 years old and pass away in a nursing home peacefully.
Yeah.
You really don't hear about, of course, nursing homes. Of course, I've had experiences there. I used to work at a nursing home, but
Yeah.
I mean, but that's a whole different thing too. It's like, is it because they just want to be there? Maybe they were filled with hate and
Yeah.
didn't want to move on,
Yeah. I mean,
or it could be something altogether different, different
yeah,
kind of haunting.
humans can create malevolent hauntings. I mean, it does happen. Um, you know, well, I've got so many stories I'm thinking of, but we're running out of time here, so I guess I'll start to wrap it up. Anyway,
Okay.
yeah, so thanks for being on the first podcast. We're going to do a few more of these in the very near future and kind of flesh out some of these topics in general. I want to talk more in depth about life after death, near death experiences, different types of hauntings. We'll tell some stories, especially as we're leading into Halloween here. We'll get to some really scary stuff. Hopefully, we can. And yeah, and I want to do something again this year, hopefully with reader submitted stories. Well, not really reader, but listener submitted stories.
Oh yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, but anyway, and also we're going to start working on finding some local places around here that could be haunted and see if we can get some investigations, and we'll post them here on the website on the jeffjarmanshow.com. So thanks, John, for being on the podcast, and we will see you next time on the Grim Times podcast.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, hello, and welcome to the Grim Times podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Jarman. Today, we're going to talk about ghosts. I'm joined here by a good friend of mine named John. He's also studied the paranormal for quite a few years, knows a lot of good literature on the subject, actually, too. He's introduced me to a few books about ghosts and other things. So I'm just going to bring him his mass. I mean, does it actually...
Yeah, that encompasses quite a bit. I would say, I mean, I feel like it's more energy than anything because you have, different types. Like you got residual, intelligent. And I can't remember the other form of it, but
Yeah, that's actually a
I
good
don't
thing
know. I
to...
mean,
That's a good thing to get
it
into,
just
too, is go ahead and go over the types of hauntings and I don't know, just kind of what a ghost is in general when you think of a ghost.
no, that happened actually later
Oh, that's right. I
in
remember
my.
you've told me some things that had happened to you in the past. Um, it's
Yeah, and actually, I think you had that story on your podcast last Halloween.
Yeah, that's right. I did during the special. You were one of the submitted stories, one of the few. So thanks again for that one. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty much the same deal for me. I never really had anything happen to me. I'd never even seen a ghost until up in about a year ago, I think, after like almost a decade of studying the subject. I'm in here. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Yeah, no problem.
Um,
Glad to be
so,
here.
so let's start out kind of talking about how you got interested in the paranormal to begin with.
Oh, I'd say back in high school, actually, probably my junior year, I started getting into real reading some of the true horror stories and stuff around, looking for local stuff, and just after that, just took off after that.
Oh yeah. So you didn't really have a life event or anything like that that brought you into it all of a sudden?
No.
Check. So it's kind of just one of those deals. You always had that fascination about it, and you kind of wonder what more there is to life than just your 9 to 5 job and stuff like that. So we'll talk about what ghosts are. I mean, most people probably know what a ghost is in general, but let's just kind of discuss what they are and what we think that they are. Do you think they have a physical essence to them? Like, would they be made up of mass, or is it just pure energy? And that goes into the whole discussion. Like, is energy the same thing